Blue Springs Highway's got to be restriped.
No, but we did.
Well, I want to put Blue Springs, it's going to be on there. All right.
Yeah, my contract expires in March.
Marie, you ready? Fred, you ready?
You're live.
Well, not big.
I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Jackson County Board of County Commissioners for the January 11th. I think the first item we are going to discuss is going to be the DOT.
Brett, I'm not sure where Jeffrey went, but they do want to go ahead with the DOT.
He's doing an interview.
Yeah, well, I can get started. So, in your packet, we put the guidelines for the 2022 FDOT grant applications. So there's scrap scope, B-scope is specifically for bridges. So there's some guidelines in there related to what can be done on dirt roads, resurfacing existing roads, striping existing roads, safety precautions for signage, striping, yada, yada. So let me get going here.
It's in the special meeting section.
I got you. Yeah.
All right, so I also added, because I get this question a lot, the 5-year work plan for DOT. So if you look at that, you can see all the approved projects up to date for Jackson County. Jackson County as a whole and Jackson County that was submitted by DOT. So for just county submitted projects, the most recent ones or most current ones we're going to have are Holly Timber, which is coming up in 2024. The Browntown Road, which is supposed to get started this year. We haven't received a grant agreement or anything like that from DOT, but that is an approved project. And then I just found out last week, researching all this, that from last year's batch of applications we put in, I don't know which program, we put in Blue Springs Road, Connesville Highway, and Alliance Road. And Alliance was the one picked out of those three. So Alliance is going to be going to 2027 now from the 21 cycle. So what we have is a list that was so we met with county staff and got their opinions on the roads from district supervisor standpoint. Wanted to provide those to you guys, and then also, you know, if you want to add to, take away, whatever. So it's broken down by each category, and then it'll tell you how many applications per grant, and then, you know, obviously the roads that we're.
While you passing that out, did y'all have the pre-con for Piano Road?
We have pre-con yesterday for Piano and for Sweet-Con. And they're both scheduled for early mid-February.
Oh, good. By then, almost everybody on Piano Road will be called me. When we go? Can y'all pave our road?
Right.
I mean, they ain't heard that we pay. We're gonna pave the road. And one the other day.
Jabbo stay?
Just because you asked, we gonna do it.
Jabbo stay?
He's out.
Yeah, he is. We kind of, yeah, we're working on it. So what you see, what I just handed out, Commissioner Hill, is a list of roads that county staff is proposing for each grant. So if you want to look over that real quick. Now, I will add in the other attachments that are in your packet, it'll tell you the entire state's budget, so be mindful of that. You know, if we put in a project that, you know, alone is $3 or $4 million and the whole state is $9 million, it ain't looking too good. So obviously the best bang for your buck is going to be for resurfacing or striping and safety precautions. But we all know we're going to have several that need a dirt road that needs to be paved, or, you know, a more in-depth resurface project, you know, with full depth reclamation and then full relay or base. So, I mean, those projects are going to be pretty costly. But I think that's what got Blue Springs last year, is when we submitted it and the budget was astronomical. And then we heard back from DOT, is like, man, this is half the state budget. We need to cut. So what his recommendation was to cut it up into sections, do it in phases. But if you do it, depending on which phase you start on, there's no guarantee that your next few phases are gonna be funded. So then you got a piece of a good road connected to a bad road. So it's tricky either way.
Well, we gotta do something on Blue Springs.
Yes, sir. And, I talked to Jeffrey, come on up here.
We're gonna lose.
So it was crack sealed, years ago, it was crack sealed, a portion of it was, I think, from 71 to the park or Sylvania, somewhere in the neighborhood. It is in bad shape. I mean, Kinesville's terrible, Corbin's bad. I mean, they're all over. So, trying to prioritize and figure out which direction we want to go. And obviously, these are applications, these aren't guaranteed. So, there's a good chance that we in-house might have to do some maintenance on them if they even are awarded, because in 5 years, we just know that these roads are gonna be in much worse shape than they are now.
This is an application again for this coming current year.
This will be submitted in March.
And we'll know by December, right?
They usually have, yeah, absolutely. So, last ones we put in, they were due in March, and I think they had their meetings and approvals in October. So,
The reason I'm asking, I think, Deb, I spoke to you about, Nortec Road. For some reason, I started hearing vibrations about a year and a half ago, or maybe less than that, maybe a year ago. that Nortec Road was put on some type of state 5-year plan, and I think one of y'all verified it's not on there. And I've never heard since I've been on the board. that,
East or west of Panama City Cutoff.
Dirt road side, so it'd be west side. And so that, from my understanding, this is going back to Larry, and I'm sure it was pretty much, there's really not a history of paving dirt roads from scupper scrap. Is that true?
there's not, but they are eligible.
Right, but I just wonder if that's a waste of time, because that road is, I think, one of the highest traveled dirt roads in the county on my side.
It got paved, a very small portion.
Small portion, yeah.
What, 2 or 3 years?
To the fire
ago?
station.
To the fire station.
How did that know went from the fire station?
2,000 feet. We did that with part of bond money. I did that with bond money, but I was hoping, again, like most of the time, the Maris Mill Pond is the most recent one before you come on board. Kenny had applied several times, but the denial, according to the rumor mill, was that it had dirt between the 2 points, but it come off 2 state highways.
Yeah.
So, obviously, I guess 167 is an old, state highway, I guess, from years ago, and some is 231. And that's one reason I put that 2,000 foot there, was hoping that would get that. I don't want to waste the application at that point.
Right.
But I'd love to see that one get done, because that's one of the longest roads I have in the ditch. I think it's still about 2.5, 3 miles long.
So SCOP is the one, paving unpaved roads is one of the eligibility. It fits under the eligibility requirements. So just to read some of them: roadway safety improvements, resurface or reconstruction, repair and rehab county bridges, road-related drainage improvements, constructing capacity, I'm not really sure what that is, and then paving unpaved roads. Those are the SCOP minimal guidelines.
Go ahead, Commissioner Payne.
We know we're not gonna get like Corbin, Kinesville, and Basswood. We know we're not gonna get.
You mean all 3 of them?
All 3 of them.
Yeah.
But if we went like on Corbin Road, and that section that is so bad, and we took that section and went after that, in the same way on Kinesville, can y'all, well, let's all write it and see what we can do. I know Kinesville's bad all the way, but there's some parts that are getting so dangerous that
Really.
somebody's gonna get hurt.
Corbin, like you say, that section, that
Bad.
easternmost sections.
But now they could be just a section on Corbin. I know we need it all, but,
Did they break it up like that? I mean, will they break it
well,
up?
that's what
So-
I'm
so
saying,
we
they
put
might
in,
could. It's better.
And I'm
than-
hoping some of our consultants can help me out, because I've obviously never done these. I don't know what the application, how it was determined what to apply for in the past. But I would assume, like anything else, we wouldn't have to say the whole road. We could say, starting at X point, going east X amount of feet, we could just determine it that way. Isolate these really bad areas that need some work.
The Kinesville on that one spot.
It's bad.
I mean, you got some people calling and saying literally they're taking US 90 all the way up.
Yeah.
Just to avoid that highway, which is,
Well, is the patch truck working?
You forget the patch
Yeah,
truck.
patch
We
is,
patch. No, it's not working.
Well, we got somebody that,
Bad thing about it is how, even if they put it in a 5-year plan, is that road gonna last another 5 years?
right.
yeah.
Well, we may want to get that guy you and I talked about and start doing some
Well,
small projects.
that's what I thought we did go out to bid one time
Yeah, we
for,
got-
patch. jobs. I think we need to do it again.
I'm looking here, River Road.
Yep.
From Green to Timber Lane.
Mhm.
I really think we need to move that down to at least, it really should be done the whole road.
You're right.
But from Howell to Timber Lane, if we can't get that, welcome to Timber Lane.
And what we didn't put on the list, I apologize, I don't think I did, is what didn't get approved that was submitted last year. We just want to resubmit.
Yeah, you have a list of that?
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Yeah, it'd be nice to know what we did.
Blue Springs,
Alliance, sorry, you weren't in here. Blue Springs, Alliance, and Kinesville were submitted last year. Alliance was selected.
And which grant application was put on Scopper Scrap?
I don't remember that.
Was Alliance selected because it was the most economical of the three, or
Can't answer that either.
Yeah.
because to me, that seemed like that
I
was
think we
probably
did,
the least of the priority.
Kansville and Holly Timber, they picked Holly Timber, probably because
Yeah,
it's
again,
shorter.
we really never had any connection. I mean, when we come on the board, I just remember Larry saying, pick a couple of roads and we'll see, but supposedly there's like, what, 5 people that ride around an SUV or something, and they just randomly pick, because I never have put Mockingbird on it. I mean, I just don't know. I mean,
I don't think they randomly picked. Somebody might have told you that, but I don't think.
Well,
so.
I don't know.
Well, I mean,
And that's a good point. I don't know.
Well,
So
it is a
one
point.
thing is.
They'll go
like,
look at them.
Well, that's just.
Longview Road is a prime example. I mean, it's
Which
a
one?
Longview,
Yeah.
there's one residence on it, and I mean, it was in bad shape, don't get me wrong. But it's really short, there's one house on it, I mean, and DOT selected it.
Well, same way with
Pretty
Mockingbird.
in-depth
Yeah.
I
process.
think Larry just put them on.
Well, I don't know, but Mockingbird to me, I mean,
Yep.
it's got, literally, it's 9/10 of a mile long, connects
He
Rocky
just
Creek with
put 'em on.
Suncrest. It was I mean, I would give it probably a 7 out of a 10 road. I mean, it had potholes on it, but nothing, but look at U Drive and look at some of the other ones, it's devastated. I mean, I just wish we had more part, and I don't, you try to be careful if you slap the horse and feed is the simple fact that we don't want to be critical of it, but did they really have the total analysis of what our roads are? Because I mean, if they think that's bad, let me go show you another one.
Yeah.
And that's always been the problem, I understand.
I don't know if they use it or not. They can probably tell you, they got a profile thing. They can drive it down the road and tell you what kind of shape that road's in.
What's it called?
That's a profile thing.
Oh.
It's got like,
Sonar, basically.
right, when you're driving it, it's shooting. I know a lot of times before they do the state jobs and all, they'll go through and tell you the rideability on it, then when you get through working on it, they'll go through and tell you. So then it's on file. This is what it was. It's time to read it. This is where it's at. I don't know if they use that and all this kind of stuff or what.
so you're going to resubmit Blue Springs.
Y'all tell me what y'all want.
I want Blue Springs on there.
Yeah, I definitely would like, and I think Clinton would agree, and I think most of y'all drove Conjo, that Conjo, even section, I'm not advocating for the whole thing, because, but we really get some citizen complaint in that area on safety issues.
A lot of
A lot of it.
traffic.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, even if you segment that off and say this section is really terrible and has some safety issues, I mean, just segregate that one section or several sections, just to make sure that, and that's a heavily used, y'all will know, cutoff road to 231.
Can we do like sections for one road, one project? Like Corbin so far,
Yeah.
I can
Kinesville so far.
clarify that. I had to ask DOT, they're having some changeover, so they're having some new people in, shifting positions, but, I can reach out. Jeffrey's been in touch with Mr. Dale Harris, he's very knowledgeable there in, Chipley, so he may be able to help us out.
David Melvin. Have you ever heard of that being done? Like taking sections of the road,
Yeah.
just put it in as one project, section of this road, section of that road, section. Well,
All right,
That's another element that I need to bring up. So with each application, here are the things you have to submit. So a completed application, completed cost estimate signed by a professional engineer, a typical section, existing and proposed, and an aerial location, and then a resolution of support. So we will need to work with our consulting engineers to help us develop and submit these applications. So there's a couple ways we can do this. I don't know the best way. This is another question for DOT, and it's one of them things that they won't give you a yes or no on. So we're just gonna do the best we can. So we can spread out and have each firm do an application or two. Our concern is that if they submit the application, they may be exempt from doing the actual engineering and or CEI on that project. So that portion is financially, obviously gonna be a lot higher than just the application portion. Like I said, they won't answer yes or no. Or we can have the next firm in rotation, you know, put together all the applications and then have those submitted. So I mean, like I said,
Well, what about the ones that were submitted last year?
so to freshen those up, I doubt we would have to do anything, but I could go into the PDFs and update the dates. I mean, I don't,
Okay.
that would be, but that's only 2 of 5 applications. So they're still gonna be,
Which two would Blue Springs and Kinesville, which of those would those fall under?
I'm
Those
pretty
Scott?
sure
Two?
it was one of each. Let me
Okay.
pull up the last thing from Dustin. Takes a minute to get to. So I think it was down to Alliance, does not say which program it was under.
Okay. But you can find that out.
Yes, sir.
I know Poplar Springs was submitted
Was that dirt road?
dirt road.
Well, we were told one time, you usually do not get dirt roads.
Well, this is a connector road.
It don't matter. Poozer was connector road, 2 state roads, and they wouldn't even consider that. Just hard to
The
get.
repaving seems to rate better on the applications.
Mm-hmm.
Again, all the base work, then, I mean, I have to include.
All right.
Alliance was a Scott project.
Scott?
Yes, sir. So that would be 1 of 2 for this year if we went.
So how many do we need to apply for? Because I mean, there's obviously 5 of us, and 5 different districts.
So you can do 2 Scotts, 2 B Scott, which is bridges specifically, and 1 scrap. So there's 5 total applications that we can put in.
Oh, B. Scott's Bridge.
Bridges, yeah.
B Scott is bridge only. And I don't know that we've ever submitted one of those.
Oh,
Well,
so are
I
there
have,
any-
I know I have 2,
I got one.
wooden bridges, one off Ulysses and one off, Ranger Road,
Mhm.
and they bad shapes.
Right.
Are they missing part of it? Because we
I
got. some
got
that's missing part of
Stevens Road
it.
on these people.
So the ones that are on that list, 2 of them are existing wood bridges, Reddick Mill and Prim. One of them resulted in flood waters that basically shifted the entire bridge. It's been closed since the hurricane essentially. Then the other one had a tree fall on it, damaged a portion, and then a piece of furniture was set on fire in another section. And this, I mean, both of them are in very bad shape. And then the one on Freeman is one, quite honestly, I didn't realize was a registered bridge. I thought it was a very large culvert. But it's got no guardrails. It's eroding around the head wall. It's in pretty bad shape too.
Isn't Maddox, isn't the bridge there been closed now since the storm of 14?
I'm not sure.
Maddox, off Dry Creek.
All right. We need to get moving.
Let me ask
Well,
this.
the road is washed out on one side of it, but when it flowed out on both sides, the bridge was big.
But the road, you can actually use that road now?
Well, it needs some work, because it washed out again in Red, I think. It washed out again, so
Is the only
we've got
difference,
it closed to through track. And they have expressed interest to me about it. That's a whole different conversation.
is the only difference between Scott and Scrap, which counties can apply for?
There's different requirements, but.
So 175,000, 160 or whatever it was.
Well, that, and we can apply for a waiver for the match portion. I'm pretty sure on both of them.
On the bridges,
All right.
we definitely need Reddick Mill, because that cuts off Holmes County from Jackson County
Well,
for
and
a
another thing-
big area.
Another thing, we went ahead and Jennifer reached out to Holmes County to see if they apply for one and we do the other. They'd already submitted their application, so they're looking and house if they have any funds to help one or the other, and then we would apply for other.
Anything else? Someone, thank you.
Do we need to?
I mean, I was kind of hoping to get, here's the roads we want to apply for today.
I think
Blue
Kylersville
Springs
and
and
Blue
Connersville.
Springs,
Yeah.
most definitely.
I think the ones that were submitted last year,
So resubmit both of those.
I'd resubmit those
Okay.
in this list here.
Well,
You
Yeah.
got one on the list and you can apply for.
Ready Mill, the bridges, and which other one? Graham or?
Graham's messed up too, but Reddick Mills seriously messed up.
So you can only apply for two of
Two
those.
of them.
So am I hearing Reddick Mill and Prem?
Unless somebody has one in bad shape. Reddick Mill is not passable by vehicles, right? I've been across it.
We probably, it ain't no time.
But not on the
Signs
truck.
we spent trying to keep that road closed, but people shoot them and drive through them and all that, but I don't drive across it.
I was on four.
Scott,
I walk across it.
But Nortec will stop.
well, I want, Blue Springs on Scott.
Well,
I'm pretty.
you're only gonna get one probably.
I know. I'd
When
rather
you
have
start
Blue
laughing-
Springs than Basswood.
Well, I know, but when you start loading it up,
Yeah.
Well, they've got, he's asking for roads.
So Blue Springs was submitted under scrap, so that would be the only scrap. If we resubmitted it under scrap, that would be the only
So
scrap.
Blue Springs on scrap.
Okay, and then resubmit Conesville under Scott, so we need one more regular Scott.
okay.
Nortec?
That's a dirt road.
River Road,
It
Well,
doesn't,
that wouldn't go under
which one would Nortec go under then?
scrap. I don't know. That's why I always say
River
scrap or
Road up to
Scott,
Scott.
whatever. Who knows?
Scott can go unpaved to paved,
Scott, that's why I
so
want
we need
Nortec.
one more of them.
Nortec.
Poplar Springs.
Read y'all tell me.
Pardon?
Can we
Read
do both,
all
part of
I
both?
can only do one, y'all both asking for one, so it's gonna take,
Well, how many, I guess we
The-
just pick one for five, then there's 5 applications.
On,
One
No,
more.
I mean, total for all these, how many of these?
5 total.
Oh, it's one apiece. is what we're
there's,
saying.
on Poplar
Two of them are
Springs,
bridges.
there is
You
a
have 2 of them bridges.
Yeah.
subdivision that's possibly going out there.
Which
Reddick
has
Mill,
got
Prem.
heavier traffic
Reddick.
count
Bridges,
between Nortec
Ready
and
Mill and Graham.
I don't know. traffic
Poplar
count.
Springs.
So if you go that route, Reddick Mill, Prem, and Conesville are all in District 2, and then you got Blue Springs in District 5. I don't think we need to look this district wise, I think we need to look as a county.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that Reddick Mill and Primm are the only two bridges besides Highway 2 in Tri-County
To cross
to
the,
cross into Jackson.
and that's on
County.
Holmes Creek.
That's on
if you're not
Holmes Creek.
familiar.
Well, that's your bridges.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not, I'm not worried about bridge. I don't have a bridge I need repairs I know of.
you got Conesville and, Blue Springs, definitely on,
So the way we're sitting right now,
Danielle is texting, she's listening in. She
Yeah,
said,
like, she wants to know.
well, no, she said that you have to adopt a resolution. So you'll have to approve it at the next meeting. So you can ask for a waiver of the match portion.
Mhm.
So you may want to pick them out, but until you get the resolution, you really don't need to approve them. So you can do the resolution, you know.
and ask for the waiver
All
of
right,
grant
so-
of the match.
You ready for us to give you the list,
I
right?
need a list to start
All
the
right,
application process.
Let's start with B. Scott. We're
Okay.
doing
Reddick Mill.
Reddick Mill
Graham.
Primm.
and Primm,
All right, that's it, 2 applications.
Okay.
2 bridges, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Scott, 2 applications.
Conesville,
Conesville,
And I
Blue
heard Alliance.
Springs.
Alliance was on the other one.
Alliance is
It's
already
been
done.
approved.
Alliance with
It's been
approved.
approved.
Okay.
So we're doing Blue Springs and Conesville, right?
So,
Is
well,
that Scott?
if we resubmit the Blue Springs application,
Scrap.
that was under scrap.
Right.
So if we move Blue Springs to Scott, I don't know how much changing we're gonna have to do. So if we
All right, we'll leave it
resubmit,
under
Keep it-
scrap.
yeah,
Just put
scrap.
Blue Springs in.
okay,
Put River Road in there with Conesville. If you're gonna lose River Road, it's in bad shape. They, a lot of trucks on it.
How long is River Road?
27 miles, but we won't get all of
How
it.
many miles are you talking about? Cause you, about 4 miles is about what you gonna,
That's pretty accurate.
4 miles,
4 miles, I would do,
I would guess.
I'd start at Timberlane and go south.
I mean, you probably don't want to try to get over about low $2 million. That's gonna be, from what I've seen, that's the most project budgets that we've been dealing with.
Well, we
Indiana
could
Road
break them in
was
sections.
3 or 4 million.
It was high and
And
we're
it-
paying
and it's
a lot of our
long.
money on
Yeah, but the whole road is bad.
Which one?
That
Piano.
piano.
I mean, that's like.
It's got rocks on the side,
North
people-
Highway
because
too.
they ain't wide enough.
Yeah, it sure
it.
is.
Which one?
Oh, where you
Yes,
at?
North Highway too.
That's where they had that fatality out, what, 3 weeks ago, was it?
It was below 2.
Below two.
Still that section. Jim,
Well,
it's
old
talking
US
about is in
Road does
bad
need to
shape.
be done, but we need, I think River Road gets more traffic than,
I think heavy traffic, because they're all going to
That-
that lumber mill up
I
there.
think you got it. They're pulling those logs.
How many you want on the Scott? 2 on the Scott?
So
Two
we
on the
resubmit Conesville and add River Road, that's 2. A section of River Road, and we'll measure,
And leave Blue Springs under scrap.
leave Blue Springs under.
All right.
That's 5.
Anything else you need from us? You need a motion?
I wouldn't do it
No.
yet. You already said.
No, that'll-
That's the road.
That'll get
Wait
us
till
the-
we get
That'll
the,
get us the ball rolling on the application.
get the
Bring
application, get the
and
resolution, and
back.
we'll do it next time. But we got people waiting on us.
Yeah, in the meantime, what I'm gonna have to figure out, another thing for the next meeting, is how we're gonna incorporate our consultants to assist us. So I'll have task work orders, either from multiple or all for one, but we'll try to figure it out.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right,
All right, moving along. Well, then, Wendy, or who's presenting this?
Yeah, Wendy can present the next items on the agenda, and then we'll get into the other parts.
We're not gonna make it by lunchtime. No, we won't be. Go ahead, Ms. Wendy.
Thank you. We're requesting board approval of text changes to the 2 agreements with the Florida Housing Finance Corporation for their Hurricane Housing Recovery Program. This includes new strategies and sub-strategies for purchase assistance with and without rehab, single-family new construction, and rental development. So over the past 2 years, we've had a lot of limitations happen with building costs going up, delays in the availability of materials, and minimal contractor participation, as well as other holdups from COVID and things like that. So we are trying to expand our horizons to be able to help our survivors with more recovery.
So we got a motion by Commissioner Hill
What's the motion?
to approve her request to change the
Second,
guidelines.
have a second. Let's do it.
Is there a second?
He second.
I'm sorry. Second by Commissioner Donifro. Any questions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Land?
Hunter, are you going to present the next? Yeah, you and David can come up too. So there's 2 parts to this particular item.
Skip over FDOT. Didn't you read your agenda?
Special meeting.
But before we get into the details of this item, there's multiple things going on with all of this housing opportunities, but essentially we have this hurricane housing relief program money that we want to ensure we don't send any back to the state. So what y'all just did is provide the availability to utilize some of that money for rental development. And so I just want to clarify that there's no guarantees from the companies you'll hear from today, because they have to go through a procurement process and for the HHRP funds. But it will open up that door for us to be able to put that out and possibly that opportunity be realized for these 2 developments. So the first development is Royal America, and David Melvin's going to share with y'all about this project that involves a ground lease as well as the need for additional funding.
Yeah, so I'll go fast, try to make it to lunch, but, to back up, when we started the autism program and developed that, and the county hired First Place Arizona to assist us on that, we're looking at developing more than just a little program out there that has little classrooms, but having a significant program that has state and regional impact. And Denise Resnick with First Place, housing is a big part of that to develop it and develop a community out there. So that's what we've been talking about for the last couple of years. And Denise Resnick, First Place Arizona, is on the forefront of that, written books on it. And the ideal community out there in a way is senior living, senior housing, with also the autism. The IDD is what they call the housing out there as a part of that. And we've had a lot of discussions with Florida Housing Finance, which is the organization that provides all the funding. In fact, last month, Will Ann and I, there were 3 of us on the panel, Will Ann, I, and Trey Price, is the head of Florida Housing Finance. And we've had a lot of discussion, and they're excited about this idea that it's kind of the first time that they've done it with the senior housing and the IDD housing combined. And so they're excited about that process. So over a year ago, we started down that route and kind of partnered with Royal American. Royal American, if you're not familiar, they own several properties here. They're based in Panama City, but they're a huge company. I think they have 25,000 units that they own or manage and all, and have good personal relationships with Royal American. And Ray Dodge is here with that. That's not what he drove today. That's his name, Ray Dodge. Is here with us today. So over a year ago, we targeted and we were going after the IDD housing out there, and you remember we kind of got that started, and then we kind of had to pull the plug on it. And then we went after another senior housing about 6 months ago or so. We were going down that route and pulled the plug on that. The reason you have to pull the plug on these is they run the numbers on it, and the allowable rental rates that they charge in that's allowable to be charged in Jackson County won't sustain the unit because they base it on your county income. Whereas Bay County has a higher per capita income, and so they can charge rates that make it sustainable. And so these guys have having a lot of discussion with Florida Housing Finance. It's kind of a double-edged sword. If you want rural housing, you need to charge higher rates, but you hate to charge higher rates, but that's the only way that it makes it work that way. And so you can do a survey that allows you to potentially raise those rates. So we went after the IDD housing, started down that route a year ago, had to pull the trigger, stop, pull the plug on it. A few months ago, we started down senior housing, rates didn't work out. And then about 3 or 4 months ago, we started on the next round for IDD housing because they do that every year. They came out with new rules and they excluded rural counties from being able to apply for it this time. So that was kind of frustrating, pulled out. So we're looking for our IDD housing to marry with our senior housing. But Royal American made us aware that they've got this home program that's out right now and applying for senior housing. Applications due January the 25th on it. It's kind of a smaller project that Royal American doesn't typically do on the smaller ones, but because they know they've been involved with us and worked with us on the IDD housing, and it's a part of an overall plan, they're interested in doing that. And so that's what's in the intent is to apply for 40 senior housing units out there, 25 1-bedroom, 15 2-bedroom. $7.3 million project. But when they run the numbers on that, you come up with a deficit. So they need $1.1 million of support. Well, fortunately in all this, you got the HHRP money that's available, and the plan that you just amended and talking with Housing Finance, those funds will be available to do that. The problem is for this grant application, they got to have, Rural American has to have a hard commitment of $1.1 million to turn this application in June 25th. And to kind of illustrate that, and kind of jumping a little bit, so we've got Volunteer America that has a project on 73, and they've submitted it, they've been awarded it, but their numbers don't work, so they're short of funds as well on that, and because it's just hard to make it work in these rural programs. So this HHRP funding that you just amended, we believe, and Willian and Hunter and Wendy talking with Florida Housing Finance, those funds will be available probably to solve, hopefully to solve both of these problems on it. A problem with Rural American today is they need a firm commitment to turn in the application now. And while we go through the process, and of course they'll have to qualify through the HHRP through your process to do that, but we think we can substitute that money back in. So, one thought was to commit the funds with the ARPA funding, the American Rescue Funds of the 1.1 million, to give them a hard commitment to be able to submit this application now while they go through and the county processes the amendments for the HHRP funds to come in and substitute that. Otherwise, if we don't, these applications that are due through Florida Housing Finance is one every year. So we missed that window. Well, what happens if you wait to fund next year? These HHRP funds have a deadline on them. Next year would be too late to apply to Florida Housing Finance to the HHRP funds and marry them with it and meet the requirement of when the houses have to be completed under the HHRP program. That's all confusing enough. And so, the big ask today is to request commitment of the 1.1 million until we can process the HRP funds to make that all work and work out in the end on that.
Would we be, if the bank program goes through, would we be able to receive that money back, or is this obligated to that project? Is there any?
Well, so you got HHRP funds, and I think, what Willian's saying, you probably got more funds than that than you're going to be able to spend. So the reason that Wendy and all did that amendment was to be able to help these two programs, these two developments out, spend that money and make sure you spend all the money that you got in HHRP funding.
So we're hearing two proposals, and I was at the city commission meeting last Tuesday. Willian and I were both there and heard the presentation from Volunteers of America. So there's actually two proposals that we're hearing today that could impact these dollars. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Different amounts.
We're
Different
thinking, you need to go through your process, and Willian, correct me, through your RFP process, and Rural American can submit, and Volunteers of America can submit under your process. And we think there's going to be enough funds there to probably fund both of those projects and at least help them out, a lot on that and fund those two. So, but you got a process, and that process is the next.
Yeah,
several
the
weeks.
challenge is specifically for Royal America is if you all commit 1.1 million of American Rescue dollars with the hope that HHRP works out, which I have good reason to think it will, but until that is through the process and formalized, you would, right.
When is their application due?
January 25th.
Yeah, both of them.
Well, no, the other
Both
one,
of them?
Volunteer America is, so a little bit, I may speak out of turn. Volunteer America did their project, got it funded with the increase of prices, but, yes, they didn't think they needed any money when they did their original project. They didn't need any. Now they're stuck that they need some help to make that project fulfill, but they're already funded. And a little bit of the problem is with Florida Housing Finance, if you commit to do a project and then you can't pull off that project, you kind of get your hands slapped on future applications. So Volunteer America sure wants help to make sure their project works. At the same time, Rural American is saying, we don't want to turn in a project and get in the situation that Volunteer America's in right now, where we don't have funds to make it work. So we feel pretty good that it'll all work out in the end and do that, because you've got the you've got the hurricane recovery funds. It's just a little bit of a process, and we got this January 25th.
So
Rural America, they are a for-profit organization, correct?
Correct. They do some
So
projects.
they're going to pay ad valorem taxes.
I think on this project, you will pay ad valorem.
That's what I read in this, what y'all gave me.
Correct.
Sure will.
Yeah. I'm just, how are we going to recoup, if something goes wrong, how do we recoup our money? Come on up.
Well, let me ask this before Gray, is that your name?
Yes.
Before Gray comes up, the HHRP, is that right?
That's right.
HHRP money that we think that we're gonna get,
Well, we already have.
we already have those dollars. Okay, so what those have to be used for housing related projects?
Well, what y'all just did was allow for 25% of your funding to be utilized for rental development, and what you voted on previously. And so ideally, if we go through an RFP, we follow Florida Housing's guidelines. That's why I just want to make it clear, we're not guaranteeing any company anything. It goes through a process, they apply. Those funds already are in our bank. We already have that money. So we just have to ensure we comply with our rules, Florida Housing rules, to procure it.
Have you talked to the housing authority?
We've talked to Florida Housing several times, actually, and, while they don't say, oh, yes, you definitely can do that, proceed. I mean, they say you have to follow your rules, you have to follow our rules, but they like the idea of it, in theory, and what we've proposed.
What's the deadline we have to use those on?
So there's two different pots of money. There's a $7 million give or take pot, and Wendy, you'll have to help me out on those deadlines. One of them is 2023 that it has to be expended by, and the other is 2022.
The end of
That's
the
this year.
June, I believe.
Figure that out.
Expended or committed?
The first allocation is 21-22, June 3rd. The second allocation is 23-20.
So those are also things that we have to work through as the deadlines on the funding. And so, while they say it has to be expended, they also sort of alluded to, if you have a project in the works and, that there could be some extensions granted on the 2022 money specifically. Now, 23, I feel like we have time on that one.
Yes.
What was our plans to use this money before these two
Well,
organizations come?
So we are still actively doing replacement housing one by one, and I don't know how many we've done to date. The challenge becomes, for a lot of different reasons, people don't qualify, they don't, and so that's why this is sort of a blessing in disguise to be able to utilize a large portion of that money and keep it in Jackson County. So we've just been person after person, and we still have a long list of people that they are qualifying, as we speak.
So let me ask this, and again, I'm gonna allude to the meeting that I went to at the city of Marietta, where Volunteers for America approached the city and asked for help from the city commission to help fund the shortfall. I think it was a $1.2 million shortfall in your project. Is this the same with Royal American, that you plan on asking the city for?
No, that's not the city. This is, yeah. So, you know, Royal Americans knows that there's a $1.1 million deficit in it when they calculated it, because it was Volunteer America, that theirs originally, I don't think they anticipated that there was a deficit.
Are both of these projects in the city?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Jim Dean, what are y'all doing?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that question too.
I'm glad you made it.
Proud to be here, Mr. Peacock. Yes, we are looking at doing some funding on this project, Volunteers of America, because like Mr. Melvin said, that project has already been funded by Florida Housing Finance Corporation. And it was funded several years ago, and then we have the inflation going on and cost of materials going up. And they actually got a second funding from Florida Housing Finance Corporation. So they have their money to build. It's just because of the cost of materials and inflation, they've got a gap now because of those issues, and they're trying to make that up so that they can break ground. They're not applying for anything. They've already, and they also received a grant from Home Depot and a couple of other people. So we do plan to put money into this project.
How
Of
much?
course, we don't have the money that the county has, so it would be on a percentage, pro rata portion. But yes, I believe strongly the commission will put money into this project.
So Jim, I was at that meeting, and I think that their approach was that they did support it conceptually, but they really wanted to hear what the county was going to do before they made a commitment.
I think the big thing is if we can get the rule worked out with the state so that we can use those housing funds, we'll be okay. I think from my perspective, if we can't do that, I know these companies are wanting a commitment. So if we can't do that, is the city willing to split the cost?
Well,
Half, 50-50?
Well, the anticipation, and I think you've heard it once already, is that since you've made your change to your HHRP program, that opens the door so both Royal American and American Volunteers of America can apply for those dollars. Now, if they both apply and they're both successful, if, then, that would make up a big chunk of the shortfall. And then there would be a smaller piece to maybe split between the county and the city. But remember, the county's getting probably $9 million in American Rescue Plan money, and the city's getting $2.8 million. So we would hope that would be fresh on your mind. And the other thing I would say too, Mr. Peacock, is I know you hear it every day. I hear it every single day. What are we doing for housing? What are we doing for housing? Here's an opportunity for two potential applicants. One is applying and one has money in their hands saying, we want to spend this money in Jackson County. So what are we going to do to answer those questions? What are we doing for housing?
And I think, William, I always like odds. I think we're 90% confident that these HHRP funds will be available to fund these. And actually, if you don't fund these two projects, you'd probably be sending that money back to the state. I mean, there's a pretty fair chance because you haven't spent it. So, I mean, there's not 100% guarantee, but there's in my way, and Wendy and Will Ank and studying it, you got $9 million in that HHRP money. These two projects fit into it well to be able to spend it on time and move forward. And we're so pretty confident.
Go ahead.
No, I guess I would support that HHRP money, but when you start talking about the American Rescue stuff, I don't know about that. So I would have to be definitely sure that we could use that money for
Well,
housing for
but
these
that's
projects.
just the issue.
That's the
I
issue.
can't give y'all that guarantee until it goes through the process and we check all the boxes and all this. But what they need today is Jackson County gonna support it? Yes, we're gonna do everything in our power to make it be the HHRP money. But, I have.
How
limited
much money do we
power.
have in the American Rescue?
Well, it'll
whatever?
be 9 something total.
But we've already got 4.5.
We've received the
And
first
we've
half.
done spent some of that.
Very, very little. That's what y'all be deciding on the 25th is your spending plan of what you want to allocate.
But we know where we're gonna be on the budget next year, unless there's something miraculously happens. So that's why my concern's there.
So they need a commitment from us to support the project, or they need commitment to fund the shortfall. What are we talking?
There again, there's two projects. that's coming.
I know, I'm not talking about his, I'm talking about the Graves.
Yes, so Royal America needs a ground lease as well as a funding commitment for the 1.1.
Can we hear the presentation from Volunteers for America? Because they're both similar requests. I think we need to hear from.
Well, I want to hear from them, but what I'm trying to do is keep them separate and let's
And a
decide.
little bit of difference is we got a drop dead date on the Royal American and Volunteers America can then go through the HRP process, but we're kind of up against a hard wall.
So,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, may I run through our request a little bit, more
Yes.
about some of those numbers and timeline? So we are looking to apply by January 25th to Florida Housing to build 40 units of senior housing. That's the application we put together. Now, from Florida Housing, we're requesting $6 million in home funds. So all in 40 units, about a $7.5 million development. Requesting $6 million of that from Florida Housing, or request from a lender, $300,000 the first. And then that gap, that shortfall we need is about 1.1 million. And when we submit our application to Florida Housing, they'll see that shortfall. So they need a firm commitment in dollars, whether it's from a city, from a county, from some other source that we're filling that gap. And that's what we've come to the county for. Initially, the thought was HHRP would be that gap funding, with the timeline of the county having to put out an RFQ, having us apply for it and all that. The idea, I think that was proposed, was to go after another pot of funding to get that firm commitment so that we can submit an eligible application and then apply through the RFQ process for the HHRP funds, contingent on if granted an award, returning previous dollars in exchange for those HHRP dollars.
what are we buying? I mean, we're talking 40 units. Are they going to be tar paper shacks, or what are you putting on that property?
It'll be brand new development. We'll have clubhouse, and I can
You
provide.
got something,
So
David, you have something we can look at?
Great, good. I don't have any with me on it, and maybe reference some of the other similar developments.
Yeah, I can provide that. The company itself owns about 10,000 units. We manage 25,000 all across the country.
I'm familiar with y'all.
It's new construction. It'll be beautiful developments, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms.
Is it similar to what you presented us before, David?
Yes, yeah, I mean, when we did the senior housing, I think that was more of a 2-story or something.
This will probably be 1 story because it's seniors. We want to keep it all single level, make sure that.
This is kind of like, this is very nice.
So you're requesting money from the state, the housing, whatever, and then
Yes, sir.
requesting money from us. What do you have into this?
We'll take a first mortgage on the property, so we will borrow funds up to what we're allowed to do. Now, in exchange for those dollars from the state, they cap rents. So the rents for this property, and HUD sets what these rent limits are for the home dollars. A 1-bedroom senior apartment will rent for about $450.
But you have no money into this to build it.
We'll borrow funds from a lender. It's like a first mortgage. We'll take a mortgage on the property.
How much money you get from the state?
We're requesting $6 million. in funding.
And $1.1 million from us, so $7 million, and how much does the project cost?
7.5.
So what money
Well, that's how affordable housing typically works in the state of
But
Florida.
you're
Any
for
tax
profit.
credit housing we apply for that funding. And then in exchange for that funding from the state, we have to cap rents at a certain rate. That's the only way these projects work.
They don't
Yeah,
have that skin in the game.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question. So,
Go
get
ahead.
me wrong, yeah, the land is on dozers, right? So you got Endeavor, 1.1, so it's $7.1 million capital investment, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so I did the math just on 1.1, you're 275 a unit, just at the 1.1 that you're asking of us, and that's how much skin we would have in that game. So I guess I'm kind of like Clint. For 40 units, you're spending $7.1 million. The land's free.
Of somebody else's money.
Yeah, and so you're just on manage the 40 pieces of property. That's it. So that's all your company's.
It'll be theirs.
You'll be at $400 a month as the cap on these single units.
Yeah, that's in exchange for building these as affordable. That's what Florida Housing requires us
Right,
to do,
sure.
is cap rents. So that's why we need gap funding, because we can't charge high market rate rents.
Sure.
To keep these affordable units, we'll charge $450 a month for a 1-bedroom. And then that's at low home. At high homes, about $500 a month. A 2-bedroom, about $600. I can get you real rental numbers, but that's why there ends up being a gap. If we build this market rate, we wouldn't need to come to the county for any funding. But we charge much higher rents, and that would close that gap. So to keep this as truly affordable units, that's why you need funding from the state and from the county. It's just much different market, much different industry than doing a standard market rate development. We have a few of those, but that's not our specialty. We focus on affordable housing, providing good quality, safe, affordable new construction housing for folks that can't afford market rate units.
And you're proposing to build these, if we agree to help fund it, right behind where the dog kennel is, I think, where I see that.
Yeah, in that area.
25 1-bedroom, 15 2-bedroom units.
Yes, Commissioner. Yeah. And then this, obviously, the thought is this would be a first phase. We also want to tackle the IDD development, the individuals with developmental disabilities, want to tackle housing for those. And those folks too also can't pay those high rents. That's why you need to subsidize that housing from tax credits from the state. So that's how we'll tackle these different developments. But that's the only way we can keep it affordable in today's world. And honestly too, I don't want to get on soapbox about it, but it's rural counties bear the brunt of this with affordable housing. It's just the funds aren't there for these rural counties to be able to compete. When you're able to charge rents based on the area median income, and a lot of our rural counties have smaller area median incomes, why you guys honestly just don't get enough affordable housing. Something we've been fighting for with Florida Housing for a long time. Increase the funding, try and increase their focus on rural counties to provide the support that y'all need. And I think that's finally starting to change, but it takes convincing them.
How many acres are we talking?
5.
And so rural American, once these are constructed, if we agree to move forward, we'll manage these from this point forward.
Yes.
And what's the
Manage your own.
what's the length of the contract service? Rural America. What's the length of it?
Well, we'll maintain ownership of the property, and we'll maintain the rent too. And so it's a 50-year affordability period.
50 years.
50-year
All right.
affordability.
Something come up, downfall, what have you, go south, then how do you look at that?
If something goes south.
Yes.
With all paid for, it really can't go south. For them, you
Well,
could just back out your contractual agreement.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I could ask our management company what they would do. We don't face that issue very often. The only thing that would be similar is basically the situation Volunteers America is in right now, where if we don't have enough funding up front and then all of a sudden we come back in a year needing that funding, that we're addressing that gap ahead of time and saying, hey, we're taking into consideration. Their disadvantage was trying to plan this thing before COVID and inflation and the crazy prices we're dealing with now. We're at least planning this with numbers based on today's rates. So we know what the gap's going to be. And we've limited our request too. We're trying to be good partners with the county as well to make sure we're just requesting enough that they could fund both developments. So the county gets the most number of units.
So will a rural American be the contractor, the general contractor? Will you build these or will you hire a general contractor?
We are the GC. We'll hire local subs. A lot of what we do is sub it out, but we are developer, GC, and
That
management.
wouldn't be a week, because it ain't ours.
Do it now?
That's my question.
It's not ours, so we wouldn't be doing nothing.
No, I was
Give
just
them
wondering
money
if they
for
have-
them to build.
If it fails, if the project fails, does the units go back to the state or would it divert to the county, or where would the units go?
Because we give the land.
I can check on an answer for that. It's not a situation we really ever face. So I can try to find an answer for what happens, but luckily, we've never had to deal with that issue.
Well, I got a quick question. I just give that, we did a project on, down here just south of the interstate. David, you probably can speak to this better. So they come to us and they're a schedule, they're not Section 8 homes down there, so whatever that was, what's the name, Tranquility, what's the name of the?
Yeah, the one.
So they come to us and they didn't ask for land, and they regulate their rent based upon financial availability on that person. So what's different here? And the reason I'm asking this question, I guess what I'll say for me was confusion, and maybe some of my colleagues would confirm, is we're giving you 5 acres of land that has a tangible value. The state's don't give you $6 million, got obviously a tangible capital investment in you, and we don't give you 1.1. And you're a management fee, you're managing, correct?
That's correct.
So if you do hypothetically defunct, and I guess it's not possible, y'all really have no capital infusion from your company into it. So I'm trying to decipher the difference between a company that come here a year ago and said, we want to build X number of apartments out here, put a pool, clubhouse, and a gated community little area there, and we don't set the price ranges based upon finances. They did all that in-house. Nothing from us besides some utility stuff. And now you're seeing like y'all coming up and needing between the county and the state 7.1 million and 1.1 for us, plus the value of the land, which I don't know if it's yellow tagged on that or not. But I'm just trying to figure out for 40 homes, that's basically without the land, that's $7.1 million investment. And we don't have any, I mean, it's yours. We're basically giving you 5 acres, $1.1 million. State can hopefully give you 6 million. And then what do we get in return? As Commissioner McKinney said, what happens if it don't work out, which it may not in your case, never has. I'm not saying that it hasn't. But do we have any investment besides people living in them? I mean, we could take 1.1 million and I don't know how many houses we can build, but you know, 5 acres of free land that we already own, we're giving that up. And I just wonder what, besides return on investment, is people to live. I got that 100%. I'm just wondering why is the other companies not asking for money from us that's come here and done that without coming from the county for money?
Were they an affordable developer?
Right.
They were
Affordable housing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and they regulate theirs. That's what I'm saying. It's confusing to me. They didn't ask for money. They just asked for our permission to build, and they'll go forward. I just.
And I would hate to get into the weeds of affordable housing. It's an insanely complicated industry, and Florida Housing puts all sorts of rules on this stuff. A couple points I'll make. One, senior housing, you charge even less rents because you build smaller units than you would for family housing. Is Tranquility a family development? So 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, you can generate higher rents for, and it generally will fill any sort of gap you need. To build senior housing, you generate less in rent.
Right, sure.
That fills
Quite apple to apple.
Exactly. So that's one key thing to think about. There's also a lot of different programs. Home is this program we're looking to apply for January 25th is specifically home dollars for rural counties. So it's a targeted fund at rural counties. Now, there are certain issues with that funding. It is not a tax credit program. These are home dollars from HUD, and rents are generally even lower, depending, you can do the analysis county by county, tax credit rents versus home rents. These are very low rents that is required for the home fund because they know the type of counties you're dealing with. There's also 4% credits, and there's also 9% credits. Like a 9% credit, which Tranquility, I'd have to look it up, maybe that was, you generate the most amount of tax dollars for those development, tax credits, sorry, for a 9% development than you would for any others. So again, you're getting more funding. They probably got a lot more funding from the state.
So
if you look at any one of these, they're getting tax credits from the state.
So you're a for-profit company, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if the 5 acres of land would have to be transferred from our possession to your possession.
A ground lease. We ground lease.
A ground lease it, but
Yeah.
but it would generate ad valorem based upon that, right?
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay.
So we're just leasing. So we do see this as a partnership with the county, especially if we look at the IDD development, the county will be the lead applicant on that as a nonprofit. We'll partner with them as the developer, GC management company. But we are looking to lease, and then we'll also have the funding terms of the HHRP program that will be held liable to the county for that 30-year loan term if we apply and are granted those funds.
What about our terms if it goes bad?
We could add language to the ground lease, Commissioner, if that would, if that would help with the
just
So the
HHRP.
buildings revert back to us,
Okay.
do they? Would they? I mean, that'd be a contractual.
Michelle, would they?
Well, are the buildings gonna be fixed to the property? That's not clear in the agreement. They're not gonna be,
Well, you got to throw a
Movable.
third component of this. We're not gonna be the only supplier of money. The state's gonna,
but it's your dirt.
it's my dirt, but the state's dumping $6 million in. They don't have
Is
a
what
fee on
he's
that
putting
claim.
on the property gonna be affixed to that dirt, or is it gonna be mobile? Are
It'll
these-
be fixed.
Okay.
Oh, no, we don't want them mobile.
No, no.
Well, I'm talking about like tiny
Concrete
houses.
stick built.
Can they be moved reasonably? And you would probably get, I don't want to say get stuck with them, but you would get stuck with them. Counties generally aren't in the business of running these types.
Well,
Types of development.
I know personally, I support this because number one, it addresses two problems, affordable housing, senior housing. And it also, again, I would predicate that on the fact that David said Brain Trust, which is the county, and David feels like you said either 90 or not, hopefully 99%, that we'll feel good that we'll be able to use those HHRP monies to fund that 1.1. And we can't use those dollars for anything else.
I support it too. It's just a problem that you don't have any money in the game. It's the state and us.
They'll sit down and I know what you're doing because Stephen, it's Volunteer America, these are companies that are trying to do this. I'm sure they're making money off of it, but they'll open up their books to show you exactly.
But I'd feel a lot better if they had money in the game myself.
But
We're giving them land and money.
they do in the whole process of trying to make this happen. I mean, you know.
And you're right, Commissioner, that's generally, and a lot of folks don't want to hear that, but these are a little bit easier funds to go after because Florida Housing is looking for rural developments and there's not enough of them. They'll get 3 or 4 applications across the entire state for this pot of funds. A 9% credit round, when we apply, we're one of 100 developments that are applying. And it's literally a lottery system. They draw lottery balls and sign those 2 applications. So we may put 2, 3, 4 years of work into it, several $100,000 in soft costs and paying staff salaries and paying management, getting properties under contract. And we may not get an award from the state. And then we either got to sell the property or we got to keep it, try and apply for it again. We have properties now, we've submitted applications for properties 5, 6, 7 years in a row for the same development. Properties we paid, $1 million for, and we're sitting on that with that on the books, just applying over and over again, hoping for a good lottery ball from Florida Housing. So that's where they count it as, that's your skin in the game. You've got to put a lot of pre-work into this, pay staff salaries, have all that overhead, take it on the risk of doing all this work and not getting an award from the state because none of it's guaranteed. That's the difference between this and market rate developments, where you're going to put money in. And if we did this market rate without any tax credits, we wouldn't need funding from the state. We wouldn't need funding from the county, but we'd be charging these seniors $1,200 for a 1-bedroom apartment. It's not affordable anymore. That's the only way to do it.
Commitment from the state for $6 million.
We're applying for that. That's the January 25th deadline.
So if you don't
You
get
want us
applied,
to
then it's
commit.
okay, then our $1 million will stay back in us.
It all comes back. The ground lease, there's language in the ground lease as well that's canceled if we don't get credit.
So if I did my math right at 400 a month, at 40 units, y'all generate 192,000 a year in rental off 40 units. Does that sound right? 16K a month?
Something like that. I
So
probably
Probably
those
about
numbers for you.
40B, because they get more for the 2-bedroom. right?
2-bedroom.
Okay, so the 400 was
500.
the base,
Right, right.
Our risk is if we find out at some point in the future that we can't use the HHRP money to basically fund the CARES money that we're going to use.
Right.
And I'll add this, I know they wouldn't want to submit, and so if you place the CARES Act money, goes along, the HRHRP doesn't work, and we all say, maybe we'll do this, maybe they back out of their deal with Florida Housing Finance, they sure wouldn't want to do that, but we could say, well, it was all predicated some on this. I mean, so there may be a backdoor on it a little bit. And let me say, we worked hard to get housing out there. I mean, this is, and, I'm not getting paid anything for doing any of the autism stuff, for doing any of the housing stuff out there. It's just my passion and to make this thing work. And we've worked hard we've talked to quite a few different developers. Rural American didn't come up here and say, hey, we'd like to do this. We went and twisted their arm. I can tell you, if they don't do this deal, they're not going to cry over this deal not happening on it. I'm grateful that they're coming to the table, but you're right, you look at the money, but Gray, they'll sit down and show you there's a total spreadsheet of where all the money is and how all it works. But we tried hard to get folks in here, and so we kind of got this very rare stance that we got these HHRP funds. If those weren't available, then these guys would all be saying they're in, you're not going to use general revenue funds to fund housing like this probably, and city may contribute some, but you're not going to use general revenue funds to do this. We just got this unique opportunity here, just under a little pressure to get it done.
What's going to be your guidelines for the people who occupy apartments?
Right, there's management agreements in place and there's tenant selection criteria that Florida Housing sets out. I'd be happy to provide all that. We do our management
Saying
company.
senior,
Yes, sir.
what qualifies as a senior?
55 and up.
55 and up.
Yes, we-
Do you allow them to have children?
In the units,
Yes.
generally not, but I can see if that's a state criteria or what. I can ask our management company.
Well,
Be happy to get them here to
it's-
answer any of those.
we got to be very careful in what we put out,
Of course,
based upon our autism score.
of
I
course.
mean,
And other
if you're going to
things that
have
could be there.
seniors 55 and older, they don't need grandchildren, anybody
Right,
living in there with them.
Right.
Because pretty soon, you'll have a bunch of dope dealers living there.
right.
So we got to be very, very careful. And I would say that those guidelines are going to have to be very strict as to who occupies those buildings.
I'd be happy to provide a copy of that.
And one advantage, one is Denise, in first place is model of having senior and autism housing together. They prove that. And the other is, housing is totally safe, but you think seniors and all like that, Volunteer America and the other, they're family housing. So, you can get some interesting people that come and live in those. You can get some in all the different elements, but you're a whole lot safer to me with IDD housing and senior housing than you are with just open, family housing. So, we feel a lot safer with that out there at
Well, we-
We
we
Endeavor.
keep
just
this
want-
horse long enough.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we don't have issues out there because we don't know what we're going to do with the
Yeah,
rest of the
that's right.
property. It could be a town inside of Mariana. I mean, with all kinds of things. So,
Okay, any more questions from the board?
So
Willanne raised her hand first.
I was just going to say that, and I know this is asking for another meeting, but if it would make y'all feel more comfortable, we could set another special meeting later this week and allow us to have one more talk with Florida Housing, and talk through. We obviously cannot guarantee, we wouldn't be telling them we're guaranteeing. I don't know if that'd make y'all feel any more comfortable or not, but
Well,
Michelle,
we can vote.
Michelle, what was your comment?
So the agreement that is in your packet is just the lease.
Right.
Do we have the agreements for the HHRP program? Because generally that would be a mortgage. We would require the property owners to give us a mortgage in order to secure our interest in the funding. But in this case, the mortgage is useless. It doesn't provide us any security beyond that, what we already have.
Hunter, did you want to comment on what you also found with HHRP? Sorry, I didn't mean to-
Oh, no, you're fine.
I don't know if you guys, but, like, talking about two different projects. One of them is.
We're just addressing the Royal American. We're going
Okay, so
to
they're
get
a
to
for-profit
the next-
developer, so under the HHRP strategies I've just adopted, they would have to commit to paying those funds back at the end of the long term. So that would be our skin in the game. I'm not sure if Royal America knows that or not, but
Talking about the 1.1 million they have to pay back to us?
they would have to pay it back to us at the end of the long term.
What's the term of the agreement? 20 years, 30 years?
15 years or 30 years,
15.
yeah.
30?
Yes. It's 30 years.
that'd be a lot better if they told us what.
Yeah, I didn't realize that
Yeah, and-
for-profit
So
would
we've been
require.
beating this horse and now.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I think that was part, and I agree, I feel better now that we know that, is the fact that we still don't know what we're doing with American CARES Act, or Rescue Act, whatever you're gonna call it, because we haven't seen that final thing. I think Hunter, y'all provide to us this soon, because we've got ideas, we got 320 acres, as David says, and we're wanting to do something with that, and here we're already spending over 10% of it, because into something that we're not on, getting nothing but ad valorem off of. And that's,
But if they're gonna pay us back,
well, that's.
And plus it creates housing.
Sure, sure,
We
yeah.
all want
Yes,
that, but it's just kind of hard to give.
The
On
Royal,
short
Amer-
notice,
money
I think the short
to do
notice is.
something for
The-
them to make money.
the Royal America will pay ad valorem.
Right.
they what?
They will be subject to ad valorem taxes. You're structuring the deal as though it were a sale. So for lots of purposes, it'll be essentially that we're deeding the property over to the developer.
They're paying, Ray,
They will
they're
pay the
paying.
taxes.
Yes, I read that.
I make a motion, we accept it.
I second it.
All right, got a motion and a motion by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner McKinney to accept this resolution for Royal America.
The deadline is
Say something
January
else.
25th, but the thing, when would you know for fact? Is it,
Yes, Commissioner, January 25th deadline, the review committee will meet in February and we should have a final
late
idea
spring?
by March,
March.
whether funding's actually been committed by Florida House.
Okay.
So we should know relatively quickly.
All right, go ahead.
Hunter, was they something you were gonna add?
And to be clear, that's the 1.1 commitment and the ground lease.
Yes.
All right, now we need the other gentleman to
Need to
come
vote.
up.
We got to vote on it.
Need to vote.
Oh.
Is that your,
I'm sorry.
Is that your
All right,
motion?
everybody in favor, raise your right hand.
Most to say.
All right,
Okay.
thank you, sorry about that. All right. Now
Sorry
come
we
up and
put
tell
y'all
us about
through
the
that.
next project.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
Same as them, here to ask for money. This is what you get all the time, right?
Yes,
My name is Sean Knowles. I work with Volunteers for America. We are a nonprofit organization that covers the entire state of Florida from Pensacola to Key West. We do housing programs all around the state. A lot of it's transitional housing for homeless veterans. We do low income housing, 202s, which are elderly housing, 801s, which are low affordable housing for people with mental health and substance abuse. So we've been in the housing business for almost 40 something years. About 7 years ago, I started this quest of Bay County, Jackson County, seeing the need for affordable housing. Michael happened. Didn't help a whole lot, but now there's hopefully more funding coming along. About 2 years ago, we started this process of creating an affordable housing program here in Jackson County. Currently, right now, you speak of investment into the community. We have already purchased 5 acres down south on 73. Always forget, is it Holly Hill?
Holly Hill.
Yes.
It's the 5 acres just past Holly Hill on 73 here. We've already
on
purchased.
the left
that
side,
On the left.
as
Yeah,
you're
go up
going
the
down,
hill on that left-hand side, yes, sir.
Henson property.
next to the Henson property.
Right next to Holly
Shooting
Hill,
range
right
was?
immediately adjacent to it.
Huh?
So would the shooting range was? I know what you're talking
This is-
about. Okay.
This is for.
Yeah, I know what you're
It's
It's in my-
It's in between Orchard Point and Holly Hills.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we have already made the investment of the 5 acres. We currently also, as they mentioned earlier, we've already been approved for almost $7.5 million in loans, not counting the property to get this. Then a year ago, everything has gone crazy, and here we are now in a $1.2 million deficit to get this project going.
So you're short 1.2 million,
Yes.
and you're wanting us to give you 1.2 million.
In conjunction and working alongside with the city, Mr. Dean, we are asking that collectively,
When are you gonna give me my money back?
so hopefully it will be the same as the recovery, it's at the H. Yes. And here's kind of the difference between us and other agencies that probably come before you again, is that we're not going anywhere. We're going to be in the community. We believe in actuality, I already have staff people working in Marion, Jackson County and surrounding counties doing rapid rehousing programs, helping the people who are unhoused right now. Just for instance, last December, we housed over 37 families in Jackson County alone with rapid rehousing dollars, which is a whole nother program. So we're already established in this department in here. We are, one of the things that makes us different though than other agencies is we don't believe in families and individuals coming into our programs and staying there for a lifetime.
We believe in services. We believe in mental health services. We believe in substance abuse services, training, education, and employment services. If we will bring all of that knowledge and experience that we have to this program with a goal of moving these individuals out to true independence out of the system so that we can continue to help the backlog at your local Marietta Housing Authority and other housing agencies and homeless organizations in town.
So what you proposing like a apartment complex?
We have an apartment complex, 36 units. It's 2 buildings set up. It's beautiful. I should have brought this stuff, but I did not.
Did you do something like this in Bay County?
We did not. We've attempted 3 times in Bay County, and I could tell you these stories, but he's hungry. There's a doctor's. We had purchased property in Bay County, had an agreement going, and the day before we closed, the 5 doctors all got arrested for cocaine trafficking or something, and it fell through. Board of Housing fell through. So, and then Michael came along. We had another precinct property in.
So you have any neighboring counties that you've done this in besides Bay or tried to attempt? You said Pensacola.
So Pensacola, I have a 30-unit transitional housing program for veterans. I also have 13 units that is what they call an 811 subsidized housing for people with mental health disorders. In Tallahassee, I have 52 beds. That's transitional housing program for homeless veterans.
So you're asking for 1.2 mil and you don't build how many units on 5 acres?
36 units. 36 units, a community center, the whole thing for the kids.
What's gonna be your cost per month for them?
For the rent, it's so you have what you call your
margins.
700 to 900, I think, for a 3-bedroom, because it's mixed use. There's some 3 bedrooms, some 2 bedrooms, and some 1 bedrooms.
So 700 to 900 is the top one,
I think so, yes, sir.
and it goes down to a base for 1 bedroom?
Yes, sir. I think we're just about 300 to 400 bucks, and then the mediums range in between that. And that is all set based off your area.
But our capital investment with you would not come back to us. It would be yours. So we're basically giving you $1.2 million worth of liquid assets.
Yes, that is your investment into this. And I think.
Do you pay ad valorem?
We do not, sir. We are nonprofit. Yeah. One of the things that I think you had a question earlier about the homes loan and what happens to the properties if we were to go bad, is that I think Florida Housing then takes them back over and puts them out for sale, or where they work with the local counties and governments to do some acquisition.
Has that happened in your company before?
No, sir. No, sir. We tried to acquire one in downtown Panama City that was damaged by Michael, and they just assumed rather let it go than do anything with it. So that's another project.
I guess my question is opposed, just like I did the other one. I mean, again, how much is your total cost now for your project? How much you pay for the land?
Close to 500,000. 400,000.
For 5 acres?
I think so, yes.
Whoa, I got something to say.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was close to 400,000.
2 of it.
I think you said 350,000.
350,000. I don't do the number. I let my guy do the numbers. He's the numbers guy.
And
How long have you been in business?
As an affiliate, we've been in business for over 40 years. As an organization, we've been around for 125 years.
Maybe your group again.
Volunteers of America of Florida. And we've been around, again, we're in 37 affiliates. Most people have never heard of us. You've heard of Salvation Army. Everybody has. So back in the late 1800s, the daughter of the general of the Salvation Army, who sent his daughter over here from England to start in New York, saw the need where people didn't like the uniforms. You know, we didn't like the British people anyway, right? So she said, went back to her dad and said, we want to take the uniforms off. And dad said, no. She said, okay, I'll start my own organization. So she started Volunteers of America, or Volunteers of America, in 1879 or something like that. We're in 37 states around the country. We are the only affiliate that covers the entire state, and we have approximately 1,500 properties around the state.
Of Florida?
Yes.
Wow.
I'm sorry, 1,500 units. 1,500 units. So we're not all that. 1,500 units in 50-something pieces of property.
the city commission meeting, of course, you made the same request to the city commission. And I think, as I understood it, their answer was basically go talk to the county and we'll do something together.
Yes, sir.
What's the timeline on needing a decision on this? It seemed like there was some deadline that. was approaching.
We would like to have something by the end of the month as well. I just learned today that Florida Housing might push that date back some. I'm not 100% sure on that yet, but we're already fine. So we would like, in order to get things to keep them from rising, because the cost goes up every day. You know, and the longer we wait, if it's another month or so, we have to have a dead end thing probably by the end of this month.
How can we get to the point that we can communicate with the city of Marietta to find out what they're willing to do?
But we'll
They are-
get with Jim.
They are having a special meeting, I understand, on maybe the 19th. And so it is possible that the 25th at your meeting, I could have a report on what the city, me and Jim can kind of work together on what we think is feasible.
Along with the potential RFP that will come out for the motion that was.
I think it would have to be out for 30 days. One day.
And again, with the same request, we would hope that we would be able to use the HHRP monies to fund this request.
Yes, but we actually could go ahead and start that process now. for the
Could just
HHRP.
go through that process and just them funds, HH.
Well, so
whatever it
HHRP, and this is not something y'all have to decide on today. I don't think there's going to be at some point a gap. You can't fund both of these projects through HHRP completely because we don't have enough money that can be utilized for rental development. So that's the gap from ARPA, American Rescue, that the city and the county will have to decide what, if anything, they're willing to close.
So where does your profit margins come in? You're obviously nonprofit, but where is your, I mean, I'm assuming you have a lot, what's your?
And the pro forma that we've done, it will take us 15 years to start seeing an actual profit. Everything else will go to cost because we're not just building the units. We're going to bring in and the cost of the rent and everything, we will build in the pro forma that we are adding. We have clinical service. We have a clinician, caseworkers, case managers, things like that are built into this cost. So we break even really for the first 12 to 15 years. And then, we don't count in because you don't ever really know what that AMI changes over the time, and it's not significant.
So again, I'm just going by the numbers. You don't, right now, you roughly got 1.55 million in it with your 350 acquisition of your property. And again, unlike the other presentator, is that we will be getting back our 1.1 million from them, and we'll be generating revenue from Avalon. In this situation, we will be giving a nonprofit group, which we cannot get Avalon from, and we won't get our money back. So it's literally a few.
But it's HHRP, but
Yes,
still,
You will.
something we could, but you said we won't never be able to spend it all, right?
But we don't know all the
We're
rules, and I think that's part of the catalyst here. We don't know what we can spend
HHRP.
is that,
HHRP, we do know what
Oh,
we, yeah, that's
it's
what
the
y'all changed
American
to allow
Rescue
for
we don't.
rental. It's the American, well, and we know American Rescue can be used for housing.
correct.
The question is, the HHRP, we know there is a gap for sure for the two projects, no matter what. Even if HHRP slides through beautifully and they both are funded and all of that, because there's a limit on how much of the HHRP can be spent on rental development.
Where will that get measured?
How much is
that
it?
gap?
So,
Yeah.
well, it's I think we estimated around 500,000, Hunter.
So,
It's about-
so where would that funding then come from if there's a gap? Would that be on the?
So that's where the city and the county would decide what, if anything, of American Rescue they would be willing to partner with.
So the ask so far today is 2.3 million from the county is what the ask is so far. We got 1.1 million from them and we're asking 1.2 from this gentleman here.
Well,
Is that more all on us so far?
no,
Well,
not
Well,
necessarily.
the
So
1.1 is.
the
so-
1.1 is for sure. And then we really have to nail down exactly how much is available in HHRP. But Hunter was estimating 1.6.
You made the statement you would like to have this nailed down by the end of the month. Are you committed to that drop dead committed to it. But, I mean, we need a little time to work out the details.
If we can I can push it back a couple weeks into.
Okay. That would help out, give you and Jim time to work this thing out and give us a little time for, to get with, HHRP and figure out what we can and can't do.
If my
I agree.
finance person calls you, I just don't take the call.
All right,
But I mean, it would be nice to use these dollars, these HHRP dollars to fund, you know, some, and not send them back to the state for being used.
well, they're going
elsewhere.
back if we don't use it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It'd be
yeah.
better to use it here in the county.
I said that when they told us how much we got, didn't I, Wendy?
But there
I
was
said,
a
you better get busy, you're gonna lose them.
Now, I don't know if you guys are also, I don't know what, you know what your homeless population is now in Jackson County. Do you know?
heard figures.
So I've heard figures and none of us will be, you know, I guess they have a point in time count coming up, should be next month, which is where they will go out and do a true count. But it's depending on who you talk. I know the housing authority has close to 100 people on the waiting list.
If you have a single parent and some kids and they're living with mother and daddy,
That's
Homeless.
considered homeless, correct. And I've heard numbers that range anywhere from 600 to 700 people. Right.
you got some that,
So,
they live somewhere.
I like to
so
commend
they
both
stay.
you guys for your commitment, working
What
on
do
the
you
house
want to do
price.
with this?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Table it to the next meeting? Or
Yeah. I'll make a motion to table to the next meeting.
Next meeting's the
All right,
28th.
we got a motion by Commissioner Fake, second by Commissioner Hill. To table this till the next meeting. We'll try to get some things worked out and get back.
and when's the next meeting?
25th.
The 20th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. for your
Stay in
time.
contact with Will Ann, or Hunter, whichever one's dealing with you, to, let's see what we can work out.
All right, I thank y'all for your time.
Thank you.
All right, anything else?
No,
Need to vote.
we did, we voted, table.
Everybody, raise your hand if you want to table it. That's fine. All right, anything else? We're adjourned.
Yeah, we're going to, where you going in a hurry?
No, we're not, we're finished.
We done.
So, so how much HHRP money can we spend on rental housing?
It's like
1.6.
1.7. That's why there's a gap to be able to do that.
But what is the gap?
It's about 5